Before you get dressed tomorrow morning, I want you to try something. Slide your wedding ring off your finger. Not the hand you usually favor, the other one. Does it come off easily, or does it stick at the knuckle? Now press your fingertip into the flesh just above your ankle bone and hold it there for 10 seconds. When you pull away, is there a crater? A depression in your skin that stays visible long enough for you to count to 20? If you just nodded yes to either of those questions, what I'm about to tell you will change how you sleep, how you feel when you wake up, and potentially how long your heart stays healthy. Because that ring that won't budge and that dent in your ankle are not random signs of getting older. They are precise markers of a filtration system that has quietly stopped doing its job. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you how to restart it using nothing but gravity, your breath, and 5 minutes before you climb into bed tonight. I'm Dr. James Whitemore. I've spent 22 years working with patients over 60 in internal medicine, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the single most misunderstood symptom in that age group is swelling in the lower legs. Not because it's complicated, but because almost everyone gets the explanation backwards. Hit subscribe right now. We're closing in on our next milestone, and the algorithm only pushes content that people actively support. Every subscription means someone else who's been living with thick ankles and interrupted sleep actually gets the chance to see this. You know exactly what I'm describing. You wake up and your feet look normal. Your shoes go on without a fight. But by 3 in the afternoon, something has shifted. Your calves feel dense, almost wooden. The skin over your shins looks stretched and shiny. You sit down to dinner, and when you glance at your ankles under the table, they look like they belong to someone else, someone carrying an extra 20 pounds of weight they weren't carrying at breakfast. You go to bed, and 2 hours later you're awake. Not because you're anxious, not because you're in pain, but because your bladder is screaming, and you're stumbling to the bathroom for the second time since midnight. You make it back to bed, fall asleep, and 90 minutes later, the exact same thing happens again. By morning you're wrecked, and the cycle starts over. Most people mention this to their doctor and walk out with one of two things: either a lecture about sodium intake and a prescription for a diuretic, or a referral for an echocardiogram to check their heart function. And here's the part that nobody explains clearly enough. For a significant portion of people over 60, neither of those interventions does anything meaningful because the fluid creating the problem is not where those treatments can reach it. The water is not in your bloodstream, it's trapped between the cells in your tissue, and you need a completely different system to move it. Let me break this down in a way that actually makes sense. Your body moves fluid through two entirely separate networks. The first one everyone knows about. It's your circulatory system. Blood leaves your heart through arteries, delivers oxygen and nutrients to every cell, and returns through veins. That system has a dedicated pump, your heart, that runs 24 hours a day without you having to think about it. The second system is something most people have never heard of, despite the fact that it's absolutely critical to staying healthy. It's called your lymphatic system, and here is the part that changes everything. It does not have a pump, not a weak pump, not an old pump, no pump at all. Your lymph, this clear yellowish fluid that constantly seeps out of your tiny blood vessels to bathe your cells and collect waste, has to make its way back to your bloodstream entirely on its own. And the only thing that moves it is you, your muscles, your movement, your breath. Think about it like this. Imagine a rain gutter on the side of a house. As long as the house is tilted even slightly, water flows down and out. But if that house sits perfectly flat, the water just pools in the gutter and sits there until something changes the angle. Your lymph system works the same way. When you're moving, walking, flexing your calves, breathing deeply, the muscles around those lymph vessels squeeze them like you're wringing out a wet towel, pushing the fluid upward against gravity back toward your heart. Stop moving, and the whole process stops. Sit still for 4 hours, and the lymph just accumulates in your ankles, slowly, quietly, invisibly, until you look down and realize your shoes don't fit anymore. When you're in your 30s, this isn't a crisis. The walls of your lymph vessels are still elastic and responsive. The one-way valves inside them snap shut tightly every time fluid tries to flow backward. A brisk walk around the block and everything resets within minutes. But after 60, 3 things happen simultaneously. The vessel walls lose their stretch, the valves start to weaken and leak, and the tissue matrix holding everything together, the scaffolding around your cells, becomes looser and more porous. Fluid leaks out faster, drains slower, and the gap between the two keeps widening. Now, before we go any further, I need to be very direct about something. There are specific situations where swelling in your legs is not a lymph drainage issue and is instead a genuine medical emergency. You need to recognize these immediately. If one leg swells suddenly, dramatically more than the other, within just a few hours, and it's painful, hot to the touch, and red, that is not lymph congestion. That could be a deep vein clot, and you need to be evaluated today, not next week. If both your legs are swollen and you're struggling to breathe when you lie flat, waking up gasping for air, unable to climb a single flight of stairs without stopping, that pattern suggests your heart is under strain and it's past the point where home interventions are appropriate. If you're seeing swelling combined with rapid weight gain, 4 or 5 pounds in just a handful of days, and your urine looks foamy, that can indicate your kidneys are spilling protein and you need blood work immediately. And if you have swelling only on one side, firm rather than soft, painless, and you've had cancer treatment in that area in the past, that needs evaluation for possible lymph node obstruction. If none of those scenarios describe what you're experiencing, if your swelling builds gradually through the day, improves overnight, affects both legs equally, and doesn't come with breathing trouble, then what I'm about to teach you is exactly what you need. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Richard. 71 years old, retired airline mechanic, lived in Arizona his whole adult life. He came into my office convinced he was in heart failure. His story was this. For almost 3 years, his ankles had been getting progressively thicker by evening. At first he ignored it, then he started noticing his shoes felt uncomfortably tight by dinner time. He bought new shoes a half size larger. Within 6 months, those were tight too. He mentioned it during a routine physical, and his doctor ordered a full cardiac workup. The results came back clean. His heart's ejection fraction, the measure of how much blood it pumps with each beat, was 58%. Textbook normal for his age. But Richard was still swelling. He was prescribed a diuretic. He took it religiously for 8 months. He was in the bathroom every 90 minutes. He felt chronically dehydrated, lightheaded when he stood up too quickly, and his ankles barely changed. Then he said something during our conversation that unlocked the entire puzzle. He told me, "The strangest thing is when I go visit my daughter in Colorado and we spend the whole day walking around the city, my legs actually feel better by evening than they do at home." That single sentence told me everything I needed to know. His swelling improved with sustained movement. His swelling worsened with prolonged sitting. His heart was fine. His kidneys were fine. His veins showed only minor age-appropriate changes on ultrasound. Richard had a lymphatic drainage problem, and no pill on earth could fix it because the fluid he needed to clear was sitting in his tissue, not circulating in his blood. Here's what happens in Richard's body every single day, and very likely in yours. He wakes up, his ankles look thin, they've had 8 hours lying horizontal, gravity hasn't been pulling fluid downward, and his lymph system has had the entire night to slowly clear most of yesterday's backlog. He gets up, eats breakfast, sits in his recliner reading the paper for an hour, drives to the hardware store, sits in the car for 20 minutes, walks the aisles for 30 minutes, then sits at lunch for another hour. By 2 in the afternoon, he's been upright but mostly stationary for 6 or 7 hours. Fluid has been quietly leaking from the tiny capillaries in his lower legs the whole time, drop by drop, into the spaces between his cells. His calf muscles haven't contracted enough to pump the lymph upward. The conveyor belt has barely moved. The reservoir is filling. By evening, the indentation from his sock elastic stays visible for a full minute. By 9 at night, his wedding ring feels tight. By 10, he lies down to sleep. And now the real cascade begins. All that pooled fluid in his ankles, now that he's horizontal and gravity is neutralized, starts to slowly redistribute back into his bloodstream. His heart detects the sudden influx of extra volume. His kidneys respond by ramping up urine production. He wakes up at 1:30 in the morning needing to urinate, again at 3:45, again at 5:20. By 6 he's exhausted, and the cycle begins all over again. 2 simple tests you can do right now. Find the bony ridge along the front of your shin, about halfway between your ankle and your knee. Press your thumb firmly into the soft tissue right next to that bone. Hold it for 15 full seconds, then release and look. If there's a visible dent that takes more than 10 seconds to disappear, you have what we call pitting edema. The deeper the pit and the longer it lasts, the more significant the fluid accumulation. Make a mental note of how deep that dent is. You're going to retest in 2 weeks, and the difference will be measurable. Second test. Try to pinch the skin on the top of your foot, right in the space between your first and second toe bones. If you can easily lift that skin into a fold, your lymph is flowing relatively well. If the skin feels thick, almost glued down, and you can't lift it at all, you have what clinicians call a positive stemmer sign. It's one of the clearest indicators of chronic lymph congestion that exists. 3 things that sabotage lymph drainage. Most people over 60 do all 3 without realizing it. First is invisible sodium, not the salt you shake onto your eggs, the sodium that's already hidden in the foods you buy. Deli meat, bread, jarred pasta sauce, breakfast cereal, restaurant meals, packaged snacks. Sodium forces your body to hold extra water in your tissues. For every excess gram of sodium, your body retains approximately a liter of fluid. Most people consume double the sodium they think they do. Second is evening immobility. The 3 hours between dinner and bedtime, when you finally relax on the couch, are precisely the hours when your legs are pulling the most fluid downward. 3 hours of sitting after your biggest meal creates the worst possible setup for overnight fluid shifts. Third is alcohol in the evening. A single glass of wine dilates the tiny vessels in your legs, increases the rate at which fluid leaks into your tissues, and suppresses the hormone that tells your kidneys to slow urine production at night. One drink and your ankles will be noticeably worse by morning. Now the other direction, things that actively support lymph movement. Water. This feels backwards to most people. If you're swollen, shouldn't you drink less? No. Dehydration makes your lymph thick and sluggish, like trying to pour cold honey. A well-hydrated body has thin, free-flowing lymph that moves easily. Aim for roughly half your body weight in ounces, spread throughout the day, tapering off after 5 in the evening. Foods rich in natural compounds that strengthen your capillary walls and reduce leakage. The best sources are dark berries, citrus with the peel, red cabbage, and buckwheat. A single cup of blueberries daily has measurable effects on vessel integrity within about 6 weeks. Protein. This surprises people, but low blood protein, specifically a protein called albumin, is one of the hidden drivers of tissue swelling in older adults. Albumin acts like a sponge that holds water inside your blood vessels. When it drops, water escapes into your tissues and stays there. Many older adults are mildly protein deficient without knowing it. 2 solid servings of high-quality protein daily, eggs, fish, poultry, beans, Greek yogurt, directly improves your body's ability to manage fluid balance. And magnesium. Deficient in the majority of people over 60, involved in the tone of smooth muscle, including the walls of your lymph vessels. Pumpkin seeds, spinach, and almonds are the simplest food sources. Now, the protocol that drains your ankles before bed. This is the core of everything. Pay very close attention. First thing in the morning, before your feet touch the floor, while you're still lying flat in bed, do 30 ankle pumps. Point your toes down toward the foot of the bed, then pull them back up toward your face. 30 repetitions. This takes less than a minute. It jumpstarts your lymph flow after 8 hours of stillness and prevents the fluid from rushing downward the instant you stand. Throughout the day, every single hour that you're sitting, do 20 calf raises. If you're seated, keep your heels on the floor and pump your toes up and down. If you can stand, rise up onto the balls of your feet and drop back down. 20 times. This takes 30 seconds. It keeps the drainage system active throughout the day, so fluid never gets the chance to build up. Set a phone reminder if you need to. Before dinner, take a slow 5-minute walk. Not a workout, just easy, steady movement. Around the block, through your house, across your yard. Walking activates the deep calf muscles in a way that seated movements cannot. Evening, 90 minutes before you plan to go to sleep, this is the critical intervention. Lie on the floor or on your bed. Put your legs straight up against the wall so your body forms an L shape. Your heels higher than your hips higher than your heart. Stay in that position for 15 full minutes. While you're inverted, do slow ankle circles, 10 clockwise, 10 counterclockwise, then do alternating ankle flexes, 20 total. Then, and this part is essential, place both hands flat on your belly and take slow, deep breaths through your nose, letting your abdomen rise with each inhale. Do this for 3 minutes. Deep diaphragmatic breathing activates the thoracic duct, the main drainage channel of your entire lymph system, which runs right behind your diaphragm. Every breath you take is literally pumping lymph upward. After 15 minutes, roll slowly to your side, sit up, and do one final step. Starting at your ankle, use the flat pads of your fingers to gently stroke the skin upward toward your knee. Light pressure, always moving toward your heart, never downward. 10 slow strokes on each leg. This is a simplified form of manual lymphatic drainage, and it physically encourages fluid to move from the tissue into the lymph vessels. Within minutes of finishing this sequence, you will feel the urge to urinate. You'll release a significant volume of pale, clear urine. That is the fluid that would have otherwise woken you up at 2 in the morning. You just drained it while you were awake and in control. Richard followed this exact protocol for 3 weeks. By the end of week 1, his sock indentations were gone by bedtime. By the end of week 2, he wasn't waking up at night anymore. By week 3, his ankles at 9 in the evening looked the way they used to look at 9 in the morning. His echocardiogram results hadn't changed. His medication list hadn't changed. What changed was that he gave his lymph system the conditions it needed to function at a time that worked with his life instead of against it. 5 actions for tonight. 1. Perform the pit test right now. Note how deep the indentation is and how long it takes to smooth out. Write it down. 2. Eliminate one major source of hidden sodium tomorrow. For most people, that's deli meat, cheese, or canned soup. Choose whichever one you eat most often and replace it for 2 weeks. 3. Before dinner tonight, take a 5-minute walk. Not after dinner, before. 4. 90 minutes before bed, legs up the wall for 15 minutes. Deep belly breathing for 3 of those minutes. 10 gentle upward strokes on each calf when you finish. 5. Tomorrow morning, 30 ankle pumps before your feet hit the floor. Do this consistently for 2 weeks, then retest the pit test. You will be genuinely surprised by the measurable change. One last request before you go. I want to know 2 things. First, how old are you? Drop your age in the comments. The age range of this audience directly influences which topics I cover next. If most of you are 65, the next video will look different than if most of you are 78. Second, where are you watching from? City, state, country, wherever you are, leave it below. I want to see how far this information is traveling because it tells me who needs it most. And if you know someone whose ankles swell by evening, someone who's been told it's their heart and handed a pill that hasn't solved anything, send them this video. You might be giving them the explanation nobody took the time to provide. Your ankles are not failing. They're part of a drainage system that simply stopped receiving the mechanical input it was designed to run on. Give it 5 minutes a day, and the change is not subtle. It's the kind of difference you notice when you put your shoes on in the morning, when you sleep through the night for the first time in months, and when you realize your body was never broken, it just needed instructions it never received.